So, Anshar, one of the things you wanted to go into earlier was that there are different reasons for being nonverbal, and so that there are different solutions for it also.
Uh, there's all kinds of different reasons for nonverbal autism. It's a spectrum, just like normal autism is. There's a whole host of reasons, everything from differences in the brain functionality in like Broca and Wernicke's area for like speech generation and recognition to coordination issues with the pharynx and the jaw and the throat and the facial muscles. There can be sensory processing issues, which was an iteration for me. There can be issues in the white matter tracts in the brains, like the corpus callosum, things that connect the hemispheres of the brain. Um, you can even have, and they're starting to do a lot of research now correlating neuronal density in the amygdala with autism.
Oh,
And
wow.
so there's lots of different structures in the brain that are used in speech, and there's not like a one size fits all solution for being nonverbal. I think one of the things that we need to get over is some of that stigma that goes along with
Yeah,
using augmented alternative forms of communication, AAC, whether that's sign language or a gestural language or going all the way up to using like an iPad or a speech synthesizer. Getting facility with language and establishing social connections creates its own hunger, self-perpetuating cycle
yeah,
for more. So being able to rely on some of those systems early on can be a big stepping stone. Whether or not they actually get to the point where they are able to be verbal, depending on their challenges, it can help get them out of that isolation chamber and being able to express themselves, which can help a lot with emotional dysregulation. And then obviously there's a big help with speech therapy.
yeah,
Being able to schedule, go with a speech pathologist, find out what kind of physical challenges you might have with your speech. There's also really there's so many different aspects of what can cause someone to be nonverbal. And just in my own personal experience, it was the auditory processing of my own voice, my inability to be able to isolate individual threads of conversation. So if I was in a room and 10 people were talking, I would hear all 10 of them at the same time, which made it almost impossible for me to be able to. And there's also a natural flow to speech where some people are able to judge their cues as to when they're supposed to be able to talk, and that was very, very difficult for me. And if you add social anxiety to the mix and you get a feeling like you're never supposed to be able to go in, it might take you even if a person just has a stutter, it can be very difficult
yeah,
to be able to interject and be able to share something. And I remember this experience of being like 15 years old, and someone would step on my foot, and I wouldn't even want to say anything. Like
yeah,
there's a desire there. So you do have to identify what your own unique considerations are for being nonverbal first, and then depending on what those challenges are composed of, then you can start to come up with what that looks or sounds like for you. Maybe it looks like using an augmented or assisted communication device, maybe talking through a tablet or something like that to start. Maybe you're having issues with the language recognition center of your brain, so that's going to be a different challenge. Maybe it's a facial or a tonal coordination issue. When I was speaking, my voice, my tone would just go up and down like absolutely crazy, and I couldn't speak with any confidence about anything. My voice was very monotone. I wasn't able to give any emotional expression when I was talking. Um, there is a also the fear of being taken the wrong way, being negatively judged. I mean, all of
yeah,
these things can form a big cocktail. So I would say first, isolate what the issue is, find out where your challenges are coming from, and then you also have to have a desire to get out of that. Remember that whatever circumstances that we live in every day, we become used to those circumstances, and then we
yeah,
just learn how to operate outside of those circumstances. And whether that's someone in a POW camp or a person who's going through the social isolation of nonverbal autism, at a certain point, it becomes much more difficult to try to introduce something new and to change things than it does to deal with things the way that you've always dealt with them. And there has to be a desire to do that. And I think that building relationships with social reciprocity, especially I think early on with autism, it can be easy to bond over special interests. Maybe you're
yeah,
both into Fortnite or Pokemon or whatever. Getting involved in that social circle first so that what you're going to talk about isn't the source of anxiety anymore. And the interest is already there. And the only barrier is the communication. And if
yeah,
you can set yourself off to succeed in that for a first, by creating a social situation where there's no negative or positive social pressure and you already know what's going to be discussed, then you can focus on the how and the why instead of, the what.
Yeah. So summarize, no one reason that some people may be nonverbal, and no one fits all solution to it too. Like I'm my best friend, known since elementary school. He has a nonverbal son, but his son is brilliant with tablets and can use them to communicate and everything. So yeah,
And
again,
there's
thank you very much.
and there's nothing wrong with that. There
No,
was
nothing wrong with needing an alternative form of communications. You're not bad, you're not broken. It's just who you are.
Yeah, there was a lot of stigma in the hearing impaired community for a long time
Yeah,
over people using sign language and whatnot, because there was a fear, with parents and whatnot, that they wouldn't be able to develop the language and the social skills. And really it's about, continuing to move through the things that are possible, and then, pushing those limits on the things of what is possible. And you can only do that through a program of self-encouragement where you're constantly and consistently rewarded with the results of that interaction in order to be
yeah.
able to drive that desire to move it forward. You got to take advantage of your own dopamine-led processes.